With less than 2 weeks to go in the presidential selection of 2016, tensions are brewing in the Middle East, and this all centers around ISIS, this landlocked militant group who's without an air force or a navy. They're just a standing army, essentially, who are filled with just sexually frustrated young men who have been brainwashed into a suicide cult. So bombing them would only feed into their propaganda. It would only help them to recruit from all of these refugees that Washington created by the initial bombing. So whether it's President Trump or President Clinton, the same simplistic and disastrous policies will take place. So just ask yourself, how will the Kurd and Turk struggle be managed? How will the Sunni-Shiite relationship in Iraq affect Syria? And what about the Iranian influence in the region? And of course, what about the Russians? At least in this sense, Trump definitely sounds like the lesser of evils here. But there are many balls in the air with this military-industrial complex. The president is really more like a celebrity hot seat than this final arbitrator of what the United States does overseas. Just ask JFK. So as long as Assad is still in power, Washington is going to continue to attack Syria. Even if ISIS is wiped out, so long as Assad is president of Syria, I can guarantee you the U.S. is not going to let up. And never mind any afterthoughts here. Like, who's going to replace Assad? How do we know that the successor is not going to be even worse than he was? How do we know the victims of this civil war are not going to install a regime that is hostile to Washington and even friendlier to the Russians than Assad currently is? So many questions and so few answers right now. Syria is a huge mess. It's potentially ground zero for World War III. And the U.S. is on multiple fronts fighting ISIS and Syrian troops who have the backing of the Russians, as well as Iranian special forces and militias on the ground. It's as if Washington is purposefully trying to lose this, siding with these coalitions of groups that oppose each other ideologically, like Kurds and Turks, or so-called moderate rebels that lead straight back to ISIS. With 6,000 American ground forces in Iraq, you can be sure that whoever wins this selection is going to increase that number. Just consider this. A year ago, there were only 50 soldiers in Syria, and now there are over 1,500. Both Trump and Clinton are lying through their teeth when they tell you that they're not going to send troops into Syria. And what about this no-fly zone? Both Trump and Clinton have made this case, suggesting that a safe zone for Americans would be good. Meanwhile, there's Syrian and Russian warplanes and helicopters flying around that risk being shot down. General Martin Dempsey, the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2012 here, explained why a no-fly zone is easier said than done. It's because it requires dismantling Syria's air defense system. And Assad is certainly going to oppose this, and he'll likely shoot down some American airplanes. And a counterattack on Assad could warrant a response from the Russians. So a no-fly zone or a safe zone in Syria is just not realistic. It would essentially escalate things. And we have not been this close to an all-out war since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Except this time, the corporate state media is agitating the populace into this war frenzy right now. So instead of principled leadership, if there is such a thing, we're looking down the barrels of a Hillary presidency. But we're going to continue to expose the corruption, guys, no matter where it's coming from. So be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube if you are a new viewer. And check the links in the description for all the sources to this video. And don't forget, guys, we do need your support. No one pays us here except for getting a couple of dollars a month from you guys, the viewers. So please check us out on patreon.com/pressfortruth. The links are in the description. And stay tuned, folks. It's going to be a very different world in 13 days from now. It's going to be interesting, and we'll be right there to cover it. This is Dan Dix, reporting for Press for Truth. We've seen it with Iraq. We've seen it as recently as with Libya. And so these efforts are certainly going to continue with Syria in this proxy war, which many of us fear that the bigger picture here is also an eventual military-led intervention in Iran.